get really good at that internally first. And then all of these other things just fall into place without you having to rack your brain and trying to figure out, okay, so I got to market this way, that way. It's the energy behind the action that's going to create the biggest result.
Welcome to the Shine Strategy Podcast, where entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business owners are getting visible and changing the world. I'm your host, Heather Burgett, an award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, and business mentor. Today's show is sponsored by PR Stars. For more inspiration and Shine strategies, head over to shineinsiders.com now for my free masterclass so that you too can get visible and go from local to global. Hey, Shine Insiders. Thank you so much for being here today. And before we dig into today's episode, I just want to ask you a question. Have you checked out my free masterclass? You can do that, as you hear in the intro and the closing of the show, at shineinsiders.com. And you might be wondering what it's for. Is it for you? And I will just say, if you're looking for an award-winning publicist to help you increase your visibility, authority, and influence, so you can reach a global audience without selling your soul, then yes, it is for you. It's also for you if you want to lead the conversation about who you are and what you're doing in the world, being intentional with your career, and taking control of the direction of your life and being proactive with a solid strategy to reach your goals. I'm here, I'm taking a stand for you to claim your inner and your outer journey. So if that is all resonating with you, then please meet me over at shineinsiders.com. All right, let's get into today's episode. Hello, Shine Insiders. I'm so happy to have you here today. And boy, do I have a treat for you. We've got brothers in the house. We've got Guy and Ilan Ferdman, who have created this incredible brand called Satori Prime. They're going to tell us all about it today. Combined, they have over 34 years of coaching in the fields of business, leadership, personal development, and spiritual growth. Their application of psychology and neuroscience combined with ancient practices of energetics gives them a very unique approach to problem solving and transforming lives. And they also have an extremely popular podcast. And with that being said, I want to welcome them and have them tell us all about it. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. This is going to be really interesting because now we sound exactly the same. So now they got to figure out who's saying what at any given time.
I know. How do you handle that? Do you ever just say this is Guy speaking?
Sometimes,
or how do you?
And then other times we just let them try to figure it out.
You guys almost seem like twins, to be honest. So maybe you're just kind of like one person split in two.
I actually say like together we make the perfect human being.
Amazing. I love it.
I wouldn't be that egotistical about the perfection, but I think there's only two types of people that get introduced as brothers. It's me and Ilan, and strippers before they get on stage.
And that is Guy speaking, just in case you want to know. So Guy, we've got you coming in today through San Diego, and Ilan, you're in New York, right?
Correct. Coast to coast.
All right. So we're covering all the coasts today.
That's right.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. Like, how did this all happen? Where did it start? I mean, you didn't obviously just start off being coaches. So give us the trajectory of what happened for you guys in your career path.
Well, it all started in a little town in Israel called I'm not going to take you back. Way back when.
Ironically, that's true.
So we were actually born in Israel, but I'll start a little fast forward to that. So in 2004, I was actually in commercial real estate. I took a company with a $500,000 investment, and in the real estate world, we grew it to about $107 million in assets under management. I brought Guy in a couple of years later, and we did that for a while. And during that time, as we were building that business, both of us fell, and I'm sure some of your listeners know of it, Landmark Education, and we started doing work with them, which was really, really life-altering for us in many, many ways. And that kind of created our path to loving personal development. So we were doing that on the side, still doing the finance thing, but we started coaching people through that program and outside of that program, coaching thousands of people. And in 2010, so 2008, the kind of economic world collapsed. We made it through 2010, and then the company collapsed as well. And at that point, life became very, very different. So I went from multiple six-figure salary guy as well to guy moved in with our parents, sold everything, and moved back home. My house was in foreclosure. I went on unemployment checks, found out that my wife was actually pregnant with our first son. And like in the midst of all of this, we're trying to figure out what the hell are we going to do next? So I go off on my little adventure of trying to figure that out. Guy does his little adventure. And about 6 months into Guy's little adventure, he contacts me one day and he goes, listen, would you ever consider coming in? And at the time he was kind of learning this like affiliate marketing, online marketing world program. And I was hating what I was doing at the time. So I was like, yeah, listen, we're broke. Let's start a business. That seems like the logical thing to do right now.
When all else fails, become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, my mom, when my brother used to tell people that he was an entrepreneur, she's like, yeah, he's unemployed.
No. It was better than that. I'd be like, I'm an entrepreneur. My mom would turn to be like, that means he's homeless.
No! Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Classic. Thanks, Mom.
We actually have amazing supportive parents, but it was really funny how she said it.
Yeah, so, super supportive mom, actually. Yeah.
With good senses of humor.
Very. Yes.
I will say this, like, when we were out on our asses and trying to figure out what's next, it was a really like eye-opening moment because we had invested so much time and effort into building this other company, and it just with a snap, it was gone. And I just thought to myself, okay, look, if I'm going to build something again from the beginning, I want it to be something that I'm so absolutely in love with that I will do this till the day I die. And it was in my control in one way, shape, or form more than my other company was. And we kept looking at each other and asking this one question, which if money had nothing to do with it, and by the way, like we were broke. I mean, broke. So it's like we needed money more than ever in our lives. But if money had nothing to do with it, what would we do? And we kept going back to wanting to coach people. So that's the one thing I said, like I would do for free for the rest of my life. And so we start this company. We took a massive detour. And by massive detour, I mean like a 5-year detour deep into the online marketing, affiliate marketing, Facebook marketing, training, agency world. And only at like mid 2016 did we finally get to that point where we said, you know what, like this is not why we got into this. We got into this to be personal development coaches. We have a big enough stage. We know enough about marketing. And we pivoted our entire company for basically the third time in a big way in 2017. And now we rebranded Satori Prime. You guys can't see, but Have It All is kind of the nomenclature. And it really is about not succeeding in business, not succeeding in health, not succeeding in finances, just really being a whole human being that has well-being and peace and fulfillment and love. Being an amazing father and a husband is probably like the top priority that I have today on my list. So yeah, we share a lot of that, and we've invested between the two of us, and I've quantified this over $1 million in our education, whether it's coaches, mentors, seminars, programs, retreats, things like that. So we take this stuff very, very seriously. We love it, and we just feel honored to be able to share it with the world.
I love that. And I'd like to hear more about this shift because you said you were heavily focusing in the online marketing. And then in 2017, you shifted out of that. So what did that look like? So it was kind of like really having a big focus on the online component of the business. And then where did the shift go? Like where are you focusing now?
Yeah. So at the time, we were basically, like Ilan said, in the affiliate marketing space. So we were part of organizations that were educating people on how to like leverage the mechanics of online marketing, copywriting, SEO, so on and so forth. And I'm pretty tech savvy. Like we have a lot of engineers in our family. I'm not very good with like the physical world of engineering, but I'm very good with the virtual world of engineering. So I guess I got the 21st century upgrade. Ilan's not the best on the software tech side, but
that's so sweet.
Yeah.
I'm not the best. I'm terribly like incapable.
he can download it. He can download the app and log
Yes,
in
and that's where it
around.
ends. Then it starts with phone calls like, "Guy, what do I do now? Guy, what do I do now? Guy, what do I do now?"
Yeah, I'm Ilan's living FAQ. But yeah, the bottom line is, but again, we create great balance. He's amazing with people. He's a really good salesman and stuff like that. Anyway, long story short, we became top earners in one of these organizations that people like vie for, kind of like in the network marketing affiliate space, and that turned us into the people that, thousands of people all over the world kind of like pedestal. You don't want them to do that, but they do. And then we became trainers in the company. So we were traveling all over the world, like in London and Australia every 3 months and training hundreds of people in a room. And we were like the marketing guys. Honestly, I could say this without being too egotistical about it. We were one of the best Facebook marketers in the world for a period of time. That's a long time ago, but I'm talking like the wild west days of Facebook. I figured out some really amazing things back then. So we were helping people build businesses, learn how to be entrepreneurs. So the way I think people thought about us was like these marketing gurus who know some personal development. And as much as that was cool, that wasn't really what we wanted. We really wanted to be known as like the spiritual and personal development guys who also know this business stuff. And that I think was what kind of led us to let go of that whole side of the business. So we were doing, multiple 7 figures on that side. We're like, hey, look, we're going to turn that stuff off. And we had talked about alignment a little bit before we got on here. That's a really crucial word, and I think people would define it differently. For me, alignment is like, it's as simple as, are you living in fear or are you living in faith and love, basically, right? So it's like, are you taking this action from faith and love? And the alignment piece to me is like, not so much the action that you're taking, but the energy that's behind the action that's most important. So it's like, how are you being when you're taking that action? And you'll get more of that beingness when you put that energy into that action. So it became out of alignment to do the affiliate stuff just for the sake of money. We weren't really interested in training people in marketing anymore. It was fun for a while, but it stopped being fun. And we had to make like a real decision, like, okay, regardless of what it looks like to give up all of that, and we did, we kind of like restarted our lives again. Is that really what we want to build, or do we want to build this thing that we set out to do in the beginning, which was really serve as many people as possible? And we've had goal of serving 100 million people for quite some time. So yeah, we kind of like hit the reset button on the whole organization, rebranded, hired the copywriters, did all the things that you do, and thought, okay, cool. We've done all this marketing stuff. We know what we're doing. We've been training on it for a few years. We got a good amount of money in the bank. So in 90 days from now, we'll have this new business up and running, making multiple 7 figures. And then it's like everything else, right? It's a very humbling experience when you take on something new and realize that regardless of the skill set that you've built, like you're really building this thing from scratch. You're raising a new child, and it's not like the previous child. And it has
a whole new learning curve.
Totally. And it has its own tendencies and own things. So we've kind of been on this like 0 to 3 year entrepreneurial journey all over again, building our company. And I don't think that we've ever been in a better place in terms of doing genuinely what we love. I can't say we're exactly where we were financially speaking, but honestly, like I've never been happier in terms of who we're serving, how we're serving, and generally we're like the direction of our lives and who we get to be around.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I mean, that's, you guys are just a shining example of what it takes to really pursue your bliss and follow your heart. And it's incredible that you've made that decision and that shift, which I'm sure was not easy to let go when you have as they often say, like at Disney, you get those golden handcuffs because they take such good care of you, or you're doing so well financially there. To leave a situation like that can be really, really tricky and brave. So congratulations on following your bliss. And I'd love to hear more about, what is the Satori Prime brand? What does it mean? What do the words mean?
It's meant so many things at so many times. So this is a kind of cool, funny story. Satori is a word that means a moment of enlightenment, actually like a moment of sudden enlightenment. And I read it in some book. And even when we were in the financial real estate days, we actually, 2 of our hedge funds that we created were Satori Capital and Satori Investments. I just love the word. And when Guy and I were looking to create a company at the time, everyone's business was their name. And our name is Ferdman, which is not that sexy. So we were like, Ferdman Brothers, that sounds really weird. Work with Ilan and Guy. We didn't want to do that. And so we looked for the name, and the word we kept coming back to was Satori, but we wanted something behind it. We had just gone to see Transformers. And one of our favorite movies growing up, one of like our favorite cartoons growing up was Transformers.
Prime.
Optimus Prime. And so we had just said, like Optimus Prime was like the best. So Satori Prime, and it just kind of had this nice ring. And we're like, that works, and in our mind, Prime was the best. So we're doing this webinar, and it was like 4 months into it. And I was like, you know what? We never actually looked up the word Prime.
I think someone asked.
Yeah. So I go into Google.
Means, yeah.
And I type it in. It was like definition of prime, and this is the exact definition: a moment of greatest strength, vigor, or financial success in one's life. And I was just like, holy, like for real? It was almost like the name found us, because it really is what I believe we're all about. I think the way we've delivered things through the 8.5 years that Satori Prime has been in existence has shifted many, many, many times. Ultimately, I think below everything, it's this massive desire to shift humanity into the new paradigm that I feel like people are starting to see. I mean, I'm sure for you and the listeners too, even in the last year or two, it's felt like everything is hyper speed in comparison to where it was. The challenges come faster, the input comes faster, the breakthroughs or breakdowns come faster. It's almost like we're in this like tunnel to get humanity to like, let's go. And so I think that's where we see ourselves more than anything, is as this shift in consciousness is happening, we always push to be at the forefront. For example, like Guy and I just got accepted into this incredible program. I call it it's X-Men for wizards and witches. They accept 120 people from all over the world for a 2-year program. And Guy and I got accepted. And we are constantly looking for the outer edge, like the most fringe, cutting edge technology that's out there. That's where we roam. And I think one of our strengths is we go and we experiment with a lot, and then boil down the essence of all of those things to make it as practical and easy to digest as possible. We don't like sounding smart. We don't go like, I can list off for you all these neuroscience things, but at the end of the day, is that really what's going to make a difference in your world? Probably not. You want to know how to use those things in the most practical sense. And that's really what we focus on here.
I love that. Can you give us any sort of examples that maybe the listeners can actually implement, or any strategies or tactics that maybe they could even start using today?
Yeah, totally. Go for it, bro.
Yeah, I can go. I'll go about it in a roundabout way. Like obviously, right? Like most of the industry, and it's fine. I think it's an important aspect, and certainly we spent a lot of time there. And to be honest, like if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, this whole world is really mystical and mysterious, there is a lot of mystery in the mystical, right? Which is kind of beautiful, because all these magical happenings are possible for all of us, and I don't think we give nearly enough credence and respect to how magical our reality really is on a day-to-day. Like this world that we get to live in, it becomes so mundane that we forget how incredible it really is. Something that we've kind of moved away from, though, is the mindset work, and we've gotten a lot more attuned to energetics. And that actually happened with the shift of the company. Like when we shifted the company, we were mindset guys. Let's talk neuroscience. Let's talk linguistics. Let's talk about distinction work. Let's help you organize and understand the phenomenology of your mind, so that you can basically like have more ease in your life, that when you're going into pattern, you're like, oh, I can clearly see that thing, and I could see a whole different path that I could take, right? So there's a lot of this in the industry, like change your story. Now, if you've been doing this for any period of time, like Ilan and I did for 10, 12 years, you might find that you hit an edge with this change your story, change your paradigm type of thinking, which is that there's an underlying frustration that ends up happening because you suddenly find yourself in these like boomerang effects where like the underlying thing that you feel deep within you is not really shifting. Like you're managing yourself really well, right? You're catching it very fast, maybe even getting back into balance really quick. But it's like, why is it that at my core I still feel unworthy? Why is it that I still don't think I'm good enough? Why is it that when I am really pushed up against the wall, I still act from sadness or victim or hostility? And that sat with me for many years, because it wasn't like I didn't know what I was talking about, or I couldn't point to all these amazing results in my life. But there's like a part of you that's like, I've done all this work. I've invested $1 million. I've been to all the seminars. I've done all the things. And yet I still feel those things inside. So when I'm coaching somebody and they're coming to me, they're like, I don't want to feel this unworthiness anymore. You're like, I can help you with that, which I can. But I gotta be honest with you, I still feel unworthy inside too. Like there's that aspect. And so that led to a whole inquiry of like, well, what else is there? And as is often the times when we inquire, the teacher will then appear, right? So long story short here, we've been working with a mentor for about 3 years. It's a person who experienced an NDE. If people don't know what NDE is, it's a near-death experience, and had in short, like an awakening experience. I don't like calling anyone particularly enlightened, but it's as close as I've ever met to somebody who is. And Ilan and I me for 3 years, Ilan about 2 now, right? You've been sitting with him. We get to work with this incredible human being who his abilities rival some things that you would see in some pretty science fiction movies. I won't go into all that, but I'll just like leave that kind of carrot hanging out there. So we've been very privileged to work with this person. And what really I have found as I've worked with the energetics is that we all have these incredible natural gifts that can come online. So I'll kind of try to diagram for the listeners a little bit what this looks like so I can put it on the court for you. A lot of us are trying to understand ourselves. So we gather all this information. And if you think about the conscious mind is, what is it really good for? Well, it's an amazing protection mechanism. It keeps us alive. And if you want to kind of look at or say how it operates, it's very good at taking raw materials that it already knows how to work with, dismantling them, and putting them back together in a new way. So if you see like a house made out of bricks, the mind knows how to take it apart and then put the house together in a new shape. But it doesn't know how to find new materials. It's not good at this. What we call it the subconscious mind, the unconscious part of you, the part that most people tune into when they meditate and their nervous system relaxes and the mind quiets down, is the part that's more connected to divine intelligence, eureka, insight, right? Like sporadic knowledge. And for me, all of religion, all of spirituality, most scientific exploration that's worthwhile, quantum physics, whatever, it really comes from that field. It doesn't come from the conscious state of people thinking around and sitting there, let me think about this problem forever. So we've kind of like tapped more into this intuitive field, so to speak. You call it the feminine energy, I guess, if you want. And so if you think about really how most people are trying to do it, it's like if they understand more, they try to manage themselves more, but all they end up doing is managing the manager within themselves. So you have like an upset, right? Something that upsets you. And then you have a response to it. And then the response is like this thing trying to manage you, telling you what you should and shouldn't do. And then you have a response to the thing that's managing you, going, I don't want that part of myself either. So now it's like you're trying to manage the manager that's managing you. And this is kind of how like personal development gets you into these weird ass loops, because you just develop more management systems for the things that have been managing your whole life. And it's exhausting. You're like, you run out of energy. You're just like, all right. And then you become a pacifist. Okay, so now I'm going to just float down the river, let God take me wherever I want. But of course, as you float down the river, there's rocks and sticks and everything's like hitting you in the face and in the legs, and it hurts and leaves scars, and that doesn't feel good either. So there's like this like middle area. And so now I find that it's like, okay, here you are in your environment. And regardless of how much information or knowledge that you have, your body is this incredible intelligent machine that has a lot of truth for you, more truth than your mind will ever have. The mind is full of illusions. The body's full of truth. So it's like, the body's going to respond to something. It's going to give you some kind of sensory input, right? Like a feeling, like a gut check or a squeezing or something like that in there. And then if you kind of take that up the line, you have the sensory input, then you have the mind interpreting what's happening inside the body, because that's really what the mind is. It's an interpretation for reality, right? So the mind's like, oh, I'm having that feeling that I don't like. So there's the feeling. Then it's like, we call it an emotion. Oh, I'm sad. And then we got the manager that's trying to work with the sadness, right? So it's like, if you're doing the developmental work alone, which by the way is a perfect part of a certain level of consciousness that you got to get through before you can like access this deeper stuff. So if that's where you are, that's where you are. I'm not taking any value away from that, but you can see how many levels you are away from what sources all this management systems, all this like uptake in the nervous system, right? So what we started looking at is the energetics is really the source of everything. If you could work that feeling, that sensory input system, right? If you can actually imagine next time, whatever event is happening around you, mom's yelling at you, or you're stressed at work, or partnership is not working out, the response in the system, there was no response. So the mind doesn't have to interpret an emotion, doesn't have to interpret a feeling, doesn't have to interpret a protective response. You don't have to manage that. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna point at these things because there's not really a formula to this, but I want to get people engaged with thinking about and even feeling into what this is. So like I want to tell you that the focus I had before with personal development was constantly working on trying to make myself feel better. How do I feel good? The switch has been, instead of trying to make myself feel good, was just getting better at feeling. Period. How do you get better at feeling? And so this will be the last bit I say because I'm talking a lot, but like the way I look at it now is like the body's a metabolic machine. It metabolizes. What do you put food into your body for? To metabolize energy, right? We're just metabolizing sunlight energy basically in different ways. So if you're eating animals or plants, doesn't matter. It's all sunlight energy, but you're metabolizing energy. Now, if you were to put something into your mouth and your body couldn't metabolize it, now you're constipated. This is going to hurt. It's going to cause stress and anxiety in your system, and is going to have all sorts of responsive reactions to it, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically. So if you think about energy that we're receiving throughout the day, we're all energy beings, right? Every single one of us. And if you're like, oh, shut up about this energy thing. Okay, well, Tesla was a pretty smart person, has this amazing line. It's like, if you want to understand the universe, look at vibration, frequency, and energy. If Tesla had some insights into this, we should probably take a look ourselves. So it's like we can't separate ourselves from energy, but the bottom line here is you're consuming energy or you're absorbing energy and you're having responses in your system. You can't help that. I don't care about how much information or how many books or how many seminars you take. Now, if that energy enters your body and you don't know how to metabolize it, you can start seeing how the nervous system, just like constipation, constipates itself. And then there's a response that the mind is having to try to deal with that. But again, the energy hasn't moved yet. So then it's constantly in pattern trying to deal with that. So what we're working with people on now is teaching them how to actually metabolize energy in their body. And the irony is it's just allowing. You don't really have to do anything at all, right? Like I have a cut on my finger today, which is awesome because I love this analogy. If you cut your finger, you don't sit here and have an opinion and tell your finger how to fix that finger. No more than you tell your body what to do when there's food inside, or a mom tells the body what to do when there's an embryo inside. There's a divine intelligence that we all naturally abide by and trust that will take care of all these things and bring us back to health, bring us back to homeostasis, bring us back to neutrality. But when it comes to the events in our lives, we don't do that. We have nothing but input. We tell God where we want to go. We tell the energy what we need, how it should be, what we're supposed to do, everything we're marketed to, everything we see is successful, blah, 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 right? And the reality is if you just start allowing and you learn how to allow, the energy metabolizes, the response in the system stops. And because of that, the protection mechanisms that come along with it are no longer needed, naturally transforming your life without any effort or work on your part.
Oh my gosh, I love all of this, and there's so much to unpack here. I've been scribbling down my notes. I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about this. Yeah, this is amazing. And we actually just recently had a 38th generation Chinese medicine doctor on the show, Dr. Mao.
Whoa.
And yeah, he's got this incredible family lineage. And so that's something I've been attracted to over the years is the Eastern medicines, Chinese medicine. And like so much of what you're talking about is like what we resist persists. That's where we get the things, the emotions actually do get locked into our body because they have an energy to them. So something like just one system like Chinese acupuncture, their whole philosophy is around stagnation in the body and just moving that energy through. That's what the needles do. Yoga, same thing. So I love that this whole concept of looking at people as an energetic being and how we have to move that energy. And it's not even, as you're saying, it's not even a hard thing to do when you actually acknowledge it and allow it. And it's when we're fighting it and resisting and having those internal mental struggles around it, that's when it kind of gets stuck. And, you know, in Chinese medicine, they will say that we store, like, say, anger. There are different emotions we store in our different organs. So, like, anger goes into the liver.
Right.
So if you have liver issues, you probably have some anger to release and deal with. So this is amazing. I also loved what you talked about with the unconscious beliefs. You know, like we have so many different pieces of us running the show, our different bodies, our mental bodies, emotional bodies, our unconscious belief systems. So, you know, our conscious self might be saying like, yes, I want this, but then all these other layers of us are not in alignment with that. This, in terms of like practices, I meditate. I know a lot of our listeners meditate. What are some of the things you guys do when you notice this stuff coming up for you?
Yeah, great question. So I just want to point out, because Guy was sharing all this big stuff, and I just want to point out, if anyone has children, look at your children. If they're 8 years or younger, like, watch these little beings in action. And what's really interesting, a lot of people think like, oh, this is so difficult. I don't understand. I can't feel, da, da, da. We all are born with this system in play. And if you've ever watched a 4 or 5-year-old go from elated to tantrum crying, back to elated in a span of 10 minutes, you know they're just energetic beings. They use no logic. Their energy just processes. They go from elations in the body, then sadness and anger and frustration, and it just moves through, and then they're back to happy. So we're all born with this. We've just shut down the system because every one of us has been emotionally hurt. We call it ruptures. Every one of us has been emotionally hurt at some point in our lives, multiple times. And this is where the emotional system led us astray, because it led to what we deemed as pain or struggle, or, all of our stories of I'm not good enough or smart enough or whatever, like all those enough stories. So it all happens. And then what we've done is we've just shut down that ability to feel into that emotional body. And so when we work with people, it's not about teaching you anything new. It's about helping you remember one of the most ancient systems that you have. And when you allow these energies to move, they fully release and heal. So if you've done any amount of mindset work and you have this feeling, this is what Guy and I, after 10 plus years of mindset work, I just got so frustrated. We started in that field relatively young. I was 21, Guy was 19. So I'm 31 years old, and I'm looking at the same, the same things are showing up over and over and over and over. This mentor, that seminar, this process, this meditation, da da da. I'm like, what? If I live to say 130, what am I, like, looking at this for the next 100 years? Honestly, not that great. There's got to be some other things. So here's at the end of everything, like the most basic thing to focus on is this. Your system is always looking for safety. There are parts inside that don't feel safe. When they don't feel safe, it creates certain patterned response, and these pattern response were created in the moment of the rupture. So if the rupture, for example, was I'm stupid, being stupid in that moment created a perceived lack of connection with, say, your parents, which was really scary. That's not safe, right? These guardians of mine are leaving me. They're not connected to me energetically. Oh my God, the world is ending. Not safe. Now that little part gets trapped in time. You could be 50, 60 years old right now. What's running the show is a 4-year-old pattern that doesn't feel safe because that 4-year-old pattern hasn't realized that you've matured and grown. So if you would imagine you're a 4-year-old today running your life, there's a lot of scary things to a 4-year-old about your life today. And one of the practices that we do, and we'll share with your listeners if you feel called to share with them, our meditation that really walks you through this. It's a much more active meditation. And what I mean by that, it's not like you're walking around active. It's active as in you're actually healing your body. You're not just necessarily sitting there and breathing and going nuts about, oh my God, I can't stop thinking. Like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You can actually actively start to notice different subtle sensations. So you were talking about anger, right? So anger actually in the body. So yes, it gets trapped in the liver, but in the body, it can actually be expressed by neck pain, back pain, pressure in the head, things like that. If you feel a lot of sensation in your chest area, that means that there's things that you're really sad about. If you're feeling things in your stomach or solar plexus, for example, that's where you feel worry or fear. So the meditations that we do walk you through sitting down and just noticing what's present and alive. That's it, because your body is constantly moving and vibrating and contracting and opening and doing all of these things. And it takes some time to start to feel these subtle energies. And these subtle energies, by the way, are so nuanced, like you'll never reach the end of the nuance. So at first, maybe you just feel like big sensations. Over time, you start to feel more and more subtle sensations. And all we're looking to do through the meditation is allow that energy to process. Because what's happening now is this. Something happens. Your heart contracts. In that moment, that contraction sends a signal to your mind that goes, oh no, we're about to feel that sadness again. Heather, you cannot feel that sadness again. I promised that you're never going to feel that sad again, ever. And so what the mind does is it sends you on this wild goose chase to avoid the sensation of feeling sad. This is where people get addiction to alcohol, drugs, sex, working out, work, because
anything but to have to feel that pain
Exactly.
or sadness or fear.
Exactly. Because at that time, that feeling was, and I mean, like to a 4-year-old, you can imagine, it was really painful. So these different protectors come online and these different patterns come online with the whole message of you'll never have to feel this again. And Michael Singer has this amazing analogy. It's like every time something bad happened to you, perceived bad, it's almost like you bottled it up in this little jar. And inside it just stinks. It's like the most disgusting, vile smell, right? Like you put all this stuff inside and you just swallowed it and kept it inside. And we have hundreds of these jars, hundreds. And then something comes along, a person, a situation, something, and it hits up against this jar and it opens inside. And we go, oh God, that smells so bad. And we just do everything to push it back down. But reality is showing up in order to hit these things and allow you to sit and watch and release them once and for all. Not like over and over and over, just once and for all. And once it's released, the next time you're ever in that situation again, that little boy or girl inside isn't, like the death threat isn't at 12, maybe it goes down to 8. And that perception of safety is just, you start to drink in more safety and more well-being. And this is where new information, people talk about, I want to increase my intuition. I want to increase my guidance. I want to connect to my soul and all that stuff. You cannot do that through the mind. There is no amount of understanding and reading and watching that will ever connect you to that. What's in the way of you connecting to that is all that stuff that's inside. As you remove it, you just start to get more information and more downloads and more guidance. And it starts to feel like you're being guided in this effortless field where people and opportunities and things show up and you just sit. I mean, Guy and I just sit back sometimes. We're like, holy crap, how did that happen? And that's a lot of the work that we do, is just constantly allowing your system to feel safe in connection, process this stuff through, release it, so that you get to become your own guru, like you get to become your own greatest wizard guide, instead of constantly looking for tell me what to do. Is this the right thing to do? Should I do this? Should I do that? What if you never had to ask those questions? We get an ability to just sit and get that response. And that's really what we're interested in exploring.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So something I'd like to unpack on that whole tangent there is about the kind of psychotherapy space, because I have a background in the healing arts. I've, worked with energy and body work and a lot of the personal development space as well. And so I resonate with everything that you're saying. And that's one thing that I, always talk to people about, is that sometimes these emotions come up. And instead of, as you're saying, just letting them, accepting them, acknowledging them, allowing them, letting them pass through like a child will do, because they have that gift. They don't have all these mental things coming up that we get as we get older, to create stories around the emotions. So I think the biggest issue is we create stories, we try to attach them to these emotions and feelings, and then we keep repeating that story to ourselves in the mental body, and then we go to a therapist and we talk about that story over and over and over and over and over again, and we can't figure out why we can't get out of that story. Yep. It's because every time you talk to that therapist about that thing, you're reinforcing its presence in your life. So I'm not saying that people should just immediately stop seeing their therapist if that's something that is working for them. But this whole component of the, dealing with it from more of an energetic space, I loved what you said earlier, Guy. The mind is full of illusions. The body is full of truths. One of my favorite all-time books that kind of started me in this sort of mind-body space was Carolyn Mace's Anatomy of the Spirit, where you really learn how all of these things affect the different aspects of your body, all these emotional and mental things and energetic things that are out there happening. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much for bringing this to the light and guiding people through these techniques and just getting this information out there. So it's amazing that you guys came from this like real kind of traditional business background and business and marketing and all of these things. And now here you are like literally shining lights. I would call you both like healing artists. It's amazing what you're doing.
We should rebrand, bro.
Healing artists. I like that. Real quick, like as you were talking, there's something really beautiful because you hinted to it. We've read this in so many books, right? Acceptance of all things, right? Surrender is a big one. Acceptance is a big one. Love is a big one. The mindset game, the therapy game, basically what it does is it labels something and it gives you something to attach onto. So a lot of therapists will say like, oh, well, this showed up because this happened with mom. And then you walk around, you're like, well, I know why I'm angry all the time because mom was this. It's like, who gives a shit? Like, honestly,
who cares where it came from? You got to let it go, whatever that feeling is, right?
That's it. Like we got the parents that we got and they did the best that they could. But if you're going to keep hanging your hat on, well, I'm this way because of this, this, and this, great. No one cares. If you're actually looking to shift and heal, that's a different story. And so the game, as we see it, is more about when you start to accept these parts of you that for decades, some of the people do personal development for decades. If you think about it, what you've been trying to do is get rid of that thing. It's just like, if I just had everything except for this thing, I'd be great. And you're, in essence, creating this war inside. So this thing tries to come through. There's no acceptance. There's no love. There's like, I hate you and I want you out of me now. I'm going to go to this person. They're going to teach me. And this is what we do. And what's beautiful is when you start to find that acceptance and love for these things and you start integrating them all into the wholeness of who you are, the byproducts are so incredible. Your relationships improve and all of these things start to shift. And the most amazing part is you can't give to others what you don't have for yourself. You just can't. So when you start to find acceptance and love and compassion for yourself, the way you operate with other people in your life, the space that you hold for them to show up is so juicy and so connected that whether your goal is intimate relationships, whether it's familial, like parents or, with children, or whether it's clients, like connecting to clients on a sales basis, when someone walks into a space that they just feel accepted and gotten, guess what they want? They want to be in that space. They don't even know why. Energetically, they're like, wow, I just feel really good around you. And so if you're building a business around that, it's like, get really good at that internally first. And then all of these other things just fall into place without you having to rack your brain and trying to figure out, okay, so I got to market this way, that way. It's the energy behind the action that's going to create the biggest result.
I love that. And so talking about working with a lot of small business owners and creatives, one thing I like to talk to them about is their why for what they're doing, because some people don't even know why they're doing it. And we have to dig a little deeper to get them really in touch with that vision. What is it about their inner essence that is being driven to put this thing that they're doing out into the world? And that's so important to actually be able to recognize that. And everybody has something special and unique that they're, working to bring out into the world, or at least they have the capability of doing something special and unique. So I call it the gems. I'm always looking for those gems because every person has something that only they can do in the way they can do it. So I love all of this. I love the support that you're giving for people. My understanding is that you guys have something that we can give the listeners. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Since it's my recording, I'll talk about it. I sat and I looked at really like the last 3 years worth of work and what are like the more repetitious things that come up in the system that provide for the opportunity for healing. So there's like 3 things, and I'll give you guys the resource here in just a minute, right? When you're sitting in a space like, and science is catching up to all this, right? It's like downregulate the nervous system, parasympathetic, sympathetic response, fight or flight, right? Like all this terminology that's in science. Really what the meditation is for is to downregulate the nervous system, get you into a relaxed state, because until you're relaxed, the patterns are active. So you can't do anything because they're like the protectors. If you've ever watched The Matrix, you have Mr. Smith, who's like the agent, right? And the agent, if you guys remember earlier in the movie, they call him the gatekeeper. There's that really famous scene with the red woman in the red dress, and he turns around and he's got the gun in his face. He says, "We enter, but they're the gatekeepers." So it's like the protectors that we're talking about, these mechanisms within you, are the gatekeepers. So if they're active, pretty much all the work that you're doing is for naught, because you're trying to do the work on the protectors, and the protectors are like, "We're here to protect. We're not going to move or budge an inch," right? So by relaxing the system, the protectors are not there present, and that's when there's a lot more access to the system. So things that we want to really focus on is energetically feeling support, like you're not doing work yourself, that there is an energetic support in the universe that provides for all of us, and has. That's why this has lasted for 14 billion years. So that number two is bringing safety into the system, like actually feeling safe, like noticing that they're safe. So even if you're in a response, like a protective response, that in this moment, there's nothing to actually protect yourself from. Very important. And lastly is to actually feel connection. So if you're sitting with somebody, that's why you still need a coach regardless, or somebody who can track your system so that you can see that even when you go into pattern, that connection doesn't get lost, which is the belief most people have. Like if I'm angry, I lose connection. If I'm too sad, if I'm too happy, if I'm too whatever, like I lose connection. And the data that the system has never gotten is that while you're in pattern, connection is present. And there's a lot of medicine in that. So the meditation kind of like walks you through how to start working these kind of parts in your system. So it's about 30 minutes to go through it, and I take you through a lot of different like energetic exercises. Like Ilan said, it's pretty active. So if you guys go to Satori Prime, Satori is Satori, Prime, PRIME.com/meditate. You guys can just opt in. It's free, and you'll have instant access to the meditation. Also, if you want to take advantage of it, we'll email you to get free access to like the beginning of our membership website, which has like about 10 2 to 3 minute long video series to help you like also integrate this work on the psychological level, understanding the phenomenology and stuff like that. So it's really about as deep as you want to take it with that. But I would say start with the meditation, give yourself an opportunity to do it like 7 days. And I would say not only just see how you feel, notice what shifts in your surroundings. Like a lot of people want to change their circumstances, right? They're not happy with their partnership. They're not happy with their business. They're not happy with that. They don't see that what they're not happy about is the same judgments that they have of themselves. Those things aren't really happening. They're just judging themselves. And it's like the judgment that you have internally, but you avoid and don't tell yourself that you judge yourself that way. So then because you're not dealing with it, you judge externally the whole world that way. When you resolve energy within you, the judgment goes away. And when the judgment internally goes away, the judgment externally goes away too. So I say that it's like you're carrying around a script, like a movie script, but the script is made out of energy. And every person that you meet, you like hand your script over to the person. You're like, read my script. And they're like, okay, let me read your script. Oh, you want me to perpetrate you? Oh, okay. I'm supposed to be the bully in this script. Cool. And they just do that. So, but that's your energy. And when the energy changes, everybody around you changes too. So like the issues that you're having, you don't need to deal with them. You don't even have to deal with anything outside yourself at all. The answers have always been within. All the ancient crafts have told us this for an eternity. And it's like we're kind of coming, full circle back around to all this mystical stuff right now because science is providing all the same evidence that stuff works. So yeah, that's kind of where the meditation really shines and helps you with, and we've gotten just tremendous feedback on it. So I hope you guys really enjoy it.
Beautiful. I'm definitely doing it. I'm sure a lot of our Shine insiders will do it as well. Yeah, I love that point you just made too about how there is sort of this merging happening during this shift in human consciousness as we move forward and have these awakenings on the planet. And, what they're finding is that all of these things from spirituality, metaphysics, quantum physics, science, whatever it is, technology, science, like there are all these different languages that all come back to the same thing. And it's just different languages for that same. I love that point that you just made, that it's all connected.
All connected.
This reality is going to be whatever we make of it. There's a field of alternatives. And if we focus enough of our energy on anything, we can pull anything out of it and make it real. So it's like, if that is the opportunity of, the next few generations, then I think it is, on us to start providing a world that's filled with a lot more balance and a lot more opportunity for everybody. And that is happening, whether you want it to or not. So I'm happy to participate and be part of that journey.
It really feels like the old, all they have been for maybe the past 10, 20 years, like a lot of the old structures just crumbling away. But even more now, like you said, it's going faster, Ilan, and everything's just speeding up. And so many more truths are coming to the surface and to the light. And I feel like as we all raise our vibration as a species, it's like that there's no choice but for the truth to come to the light.
Absolutely. That's right. Just do your work. And that's it. Like you providing peace for yourself is you providing peace for the planet. And the more each of us does the work, if you know anything about like Akashic records and stuff like this, it makes it more easily accessible for everybody. That's why this developmental evolution of humanity seems to be accelerating. It's because the more awake we are, the more awakeness becomes available for everybody. So it's like you don't have to go out into the world and make people think and act and feel like you to try to provide safety for yourself. Just give yourself safety and you're going to find a safer world. It's very simple.
Starts with you. Wow.
Starts with you.
I just got the tingles. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys. So minds blown, hearts open, spirits elevated. This has just been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your time, your energy, your insight. I hope you'll come back and see us again soon. Thank you for your gift, the meditation. I think it's going to help a lot of people. Any last thoughts before we wrap up and sign off today?
Yeah, just something that we've really been working on a lot is these two words I'll leave you guys with: patience and grace. When you're doing this work, it's super easy to go out there and compare, look at others, and just imagine that they're living life a certain way. Your soul came into this body this time around to have your own specific journey, and allowing yourself to experience everything that comes with that journey. The sadness, the upset, the despair, the joy, the love, the hate, all of it. The more you give yourself patience and grace to go through life, it will serve you really, really well. And even when you're doing the meditation, no judgments. It's like, however it shows up. You don't feel something in the beginning, great, patience and grace. You feel this, but you're wanting to feel that, great, patience and grace. Like, really be gentle with yourself. It will serve you greatly as you go through this process.
Beautiful words. Thank you, Ilan. Thank you, Guy. Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope we see you again soon.
Thanks for having us, Heather. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us today for the Shine Strategy Podcast. I invite you to join me at shineinsiders.com for a free masterclass where you can get more inspiration and strategies to get visible and change the world. Your voice matters. Please subscribe, rate, and share this show so we can continue to grow on this journey together. Until the next one, it's Heather Burgett, your Shine Strategist, signing off.